Hello once again, I'm Cosmic, and today we're going to be taking a look at Far Cry 4, which, as the name suggests, is the fourth sequel in the FPS franchise, but not the fourth game, as there were multiple spin-offs to the original. The game itself was developed and published by Ubisoft. Far Cry 4 takes place in the fictional Himalayan country of Kyrat, ruled by a self-appointed despot, Pagan Min. Following on from Far Cry 3's success of having a charismatic villain, Far Cry 4 follows suit with Min. Pagan is a psychotic, camp narcissist that provides a surprisingly enjoyable villain to the game. You play as AJ Gale, returning to Kyrat to scatter his mother's ashes. Unbeknownst to you, however, is that your deceased parents are revered in the country, as they started the Golden Path, a rebel militant group fighting the dictator Min. As these things tend to go, you end up being involved in the Golden Path plight and thus facing down Pagan and his army. Far Cry 4's mechanics are essentially slightly tweaked replicas of Far Cry 3's. I mean, the game as a whole is essentially Far Cry 3 in a new skin. The gunplay is solid and doesn't feel bad. Enemies don't feel bullet spongy apart from those that are supposed to be. I have to say that as combat goes, Far Cry 4 does a good job of keeping it entertaining. However, there are a couple of drawbacks that I really dislike. First is the game's insistence on that bow. The game is built so that using the bow is preferable in many situations. However, I for one did not enjoy using it one bit. Sure, it starts off feeling fun and feels cool killing targets from an arrow shot from range, but I found the accuracy of the bow to be very unreliable. Not only will your arrows dip over long range, which by all means they should, the problem lays in that the sights for the bow were not reliable, and it was also difficult after missing a shot to know exactly where it hit. This meant that readjusting your aim from a cloud of dust from your first arrow was nigh on impossible, which was very frustrating. Switching between weapons was also annoying as it had a tendency to be very slow. You start the game with only a sidearm slot and one main weapon slot, with two more available as upgrades. Another issue I ran into was a graphical problem with the weaponry. The red dot sight upgrade frequently decided not to load in when aiming, which made precision aiming really difficult. In fact, before I say any more about the rest of the game, I will say this. This game has an horrific amount of bugs. I don't think I have had one session that's been bug free. They range from graphical bugs to seriously progression hampering bugs. The bug that annoyed me the most, and which was most frequent in my game that I encountered, was any time during a mission or an attacking an outpost, at the trigger point where either a new enemy wave was needed to spawn in or something needed to happen, it just wouldn't. I stumbled on a very quick fix for the issue, which was if I hit the map screen button and went back into the game again, the issue would then resolve, which essentially meant that I ended up telling the game when to move on, which not only massively broke immersion, but broke the flow of combat or anything that I did. As open worlds go, Kyrat is wonderful. Its dramatic Himalayan landscape is both wonderful to look at and to travel in. In fact, I really cannot fault the world design. It looks fantastic. It's fun just to run through the wilderness trying not to get eaten by tigers or trampled by elephants. The only problem I had with the open world was in Ubisoft's reliance and insistence on their new cross-genre formulaic design of towers. I feel at this point, no matter what game Ubisoft make, it'll have you scaling towers to unlock a region of the map. It's hellishly annoying in Assassin's Creed and downright out of place in Far Cry. The most annoying thing is, while unlocking the bell towers does show you regions and its locations, there's plenty of content for me to be doing that's a hell of a lot more fun than climbing bloody towers. So why do you bother putting that in? There are multiple ways to travel the vast open world. You have a selection of land, water and aviation vehicles at your disposal to traverse the terrain. Particular favourites of mine were the glider, mini helicopter and the quad bike, which made travelling from location to location pretty darn enjoyable. In terms of content, Kyrat is brimming full of things to do. There's main story missions, there's a ton of side content including challenge missions like hunting or stunt driving. When you start off, the whole of Kyrat is controlled by Pagan's forces, and as you go along liberating outposts and such, you'll unlock more and more of these side missions. Interestingly enough, even though there is so much to do in the world, I ended up choosing not to do many of the side missions. There just came a point where I got bored with all these side missions, as while overall the gameplay experience was fun, the shine wore off quickly every single time I played. In terms of progression, you have a skills menu that has two trees. The tiger tree is focused on combat skills, and the elephant tree is focused on health boosts and buffs. To be able to unlock these skills, you need two things. First, you need skill points that you unlock by doing certain quests and objectives, but you will also need the ability to purchase the skill. Now, this is usually done by doing a certain amount of missions for someone or attaining certain targets. The skills, while helpful, are pretty bland, and they don't really offer anything that changes the way you play. On top of skills, you have crafting. This involves using animal pelts to upgrade your equipment, which allows you to do things like hold more ammo, weapons, etc, etc. The crafting is incredibly tedious, and while at first hunting animals is fun, it gets very old very fast. In my opinion, they should have opted for a different way to do this. To upgrade something, you have to first get a required number of animal pelts. And at the start that's fairly okay because it's just things like pigs, etc, etc. But later it has you actually finding more deadlier and rarer animals, which becomes an annoying time sink. In my opinion, the biggest issue with the progression overall is that it's very contrived. It forces you to hunt when you don't want to hunt. It forces you to do X number of missions for person Y to unlock the ability to purchase a skill. And I can forgive for the most part that the game is near enough a carbon copy of its predecessor, but designing it in a contrived way, forcing me to do things that I don't want to do just to hold more bullets, is unforgivable. After all, why do I want to be shooting pigs with a bow and arrow when I could be off actually doing enjoyable main content? It's a cheap way to extend the gameplay time, and it just doesn't work and causes more frustration than it's worth. Graphically, the game is very beautiful. Beautiful but flawed. While everything does look top notch barring some textures, the sheer amount of bugs that I have encountered are a cause for serious concern. I had issues with long load times, including one that lasted over 4 minutes, frequent problems with weapon assets, as well as other graphical hiccups. I wasn't even trying to run the game at ultra on my GPU. In fact, I actually played this on a 660 Ti at reduced settings for recording, as I didn't want any issues with frame rate, and still encountered frequent graphical issues. My biggest disappointment overall in the game was the characters that you meet in the main story, particularly the main Golden Path characters. Throughout the game, you're asked to choose between two potential leaders of the rebel group. Each holds different values, and each has different missions depending on who you choose to help. The problem is, the characters are badly written and just bland. They squabble with each other, and it doesn't resemble those two leaders who are responsible leaders trying to save a country. The squabble actually resembles a brother and sister fighting each other just for the sake of fighting. It comes across as an attempt to bring illusion of choice and morality in the game. However, it's not executed well, and it comes across as forced, which is a shame because Pagan Min as the villain really held promise, but the other characters lack promise. Overall, I can't say the game isn't fun, because it certainly is, and it certainly has its moments. Yet I can't shake the annoyances of its contrived design. Ubisoft's insistence on their video game formula, and to be fair, Far Cry 4 is more of a Far Cry 3 mod than an all-new sequel. For fans of the series, it's certainly one to pick up, and if you like open world FPS games, sure. But Far Cry 4 has certainly got its problems, least of all being the dictator that's trying to kill you. And that's Far Cry 4. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Do like, subscribe and leave a comment, and I will see you next time.